Are you a coach or consultant looking to build new revenue streams to fund your lifestyle and give back? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you inspirational guests and solo shows sharing actionable tips to solve many of the struggles you face each and every day. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you enjoy it, please subscribe. If you're a regular, thanks for your support. Love to get your feedback at paul@buildlivegive.com. It means the world to me when you do. Our guest today is someone who knew in the first 8 weeks of being an employee that he was unemployable. He began developing and was tired and overworked. So in 2005, he hired his first person from the Philippines, and now he has over 1 million profiles on his platform. And he is the website to go to employ Filipinos direct. So why listen? He has an amazing story of creating one of the largest job boards in the world. You will love it. The second is he gives 2 reasons his job board has been super successful and how it can help you scale your business. And number 3 is he talks about why do what you are good at and outsource the rest is completely wrong. They are kind enough to give a free book that they mention in the podcast. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Jonas from onlinejobs.ph. Welcome, Jonas from onlinejobs.ph to the Build, Live, Give podcast. Brilliant to have you on, John.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, look, I've used your platform several times, having spent a lot of time finding the right workers in the Philippines. So really excited to dig into that. But why don't we just start with something that your family or friends would know about you that we may not?
So one of the things that people very first learn about me is that I don't hold back. I like what you see is what you get with me. I'm not very good at covering up my feelings or at not being truthful or not telling you how I think. And it's something people learn pretty quickly, but I guess at first you wouldn't know that about me.
And is that, environmental? Is it you? Is it from your family upbringing? Like what's,
I don't know. This is a good indicator. So years ago, my brother-in-law showed up at our door with his fiance, and they rang the doorbell at 10 o'clock at night. And I have little kids, ringing the doorbell is not, it's not great, right?
Yeah.
And I was sitting on my couch and he could see through the door. There was glass in the door. He could see me. And I turned and looked with a not super happy face. And he immediately turned. This is what my family and friends would know about me that you wouldn't. He turns to his fiance, who hasn't met me yet, and he says, "Oh my gosh, my brother John! I forgot to tell you. He's really rough at first, but once you get to know him, he's really awesome." And that was his "Oh crap! I have to introduce her to him." Yeah, so that's me.
Cool. Well, we've got a saying at our house, and I won't say who it's about, but "Don't poke the bear." Is our saying in the family. So, So maybe it's a bit like that. Now, often in a relationship like that, your partner is the other end of the spectrum. Is that the case in your relationship?
It is, yeah. So my wife is super nice and very rosy and happy and friendly. And I'm very friendly and nice, but I also, if I think you're doing something dumb, I'm going to tell you you're dumb.
Yeah. So, we've got a saying here in Australia, call a spade a spade. Is that translated into
that's me.
Yeah,
that's me.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we'll keep it nice, short, and punchy then for the rest of it. From my research, you started off as a programmer and then sort of, turned into this amazing platform that serves so many people around the world. Just quickly take us through that journey.
Yeah, so in 2003, I graduated from college and had a job for 8 months, and my only goal was to quit that job. I'm just not a very good employee, right? So it took me 8 months to quit and to figure out how to make money online. I was making a little bit of money, and I had an opportunity where I could quit, and I was like, well, this is it. I'm going to try it. And so I did, and it didn't take very long before I realized, I'm super overworked, and I'm frustrated, and there's too many things in the day to get done. And programming is super consuming. Like mentally, it's really hard to do anything else if you're writing code. And so, I thought if you build it, they will come, which obviously isn't correct. And so if I built a really great web tool, people didn't want to use it because they didn't know anything about it, right? So I started transitioning away from programming a little bit, but I still had to do it because I was the programmer. And so I was super frustrated. I'd tried a couple different ways of hiring people. I'd hired local people. That didn't work. Nor could I really afford it. I wasn't making very much money. I'd tried hiring people in India, and that didn't work out for me. And I think so many people have had that experience. I tried hiring from what was Elance. It's now Upwork.
Yes.
It was a contract worker, and my experience there was I was super excited because I figured out like, oh, this is it. This time I got it right. And at Outsourcing, and hired this person. They wrote a bunch of articles for me. They sent me the articles, and I was super excited because I had all this work done. And then I realized that all the rest of the work fell on me to do, and that like I hated this. I hated this process of these articles and marketing them and posting them and submitting them and the whole thing. I hated it. But it fell on me because they were just a contract worker. Like their job was to write content. And that's it. And then I had paid them and they were gone and they were already working for someone else. And so that failed too. And one day I had a conversation with the guy that owned backcountry.com. And backcountry.com is huge. And we were doing some similar things. His was a side project and mine was my main project. And he said, when you're ready to start outsourcing some of this stuff, make sure you go to the Philippines with it. And I was like, that's super different and interesting, but it kind of gave me some hope that maybe I would find something different. And he gave me a reference to where I could hire someone, and I went back and forth for 2 months. Like, I don't know if I can keep someone busy full time. I don't know if they can do good work. I don't know if, I don't know if I can afford this. And after 2 months, the conversation that went on in my head, and I think this goes on in a lot of people's heads, was, it doesn't really matter if any of this is true. If I can't afford them, if they can't do great work, if I can't keep them busy full time, it doesn't matter because something has to change because I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I'm overworked. I'm frustrated. I'm not making progress like I should be. And I just had to try something else. And I hired this guy in the Philippines. He gave me a reference where I could hire someone full time. And I hired this guy, and it changed my life. It was the single most liberating experience I've ever had. This guy's full-time job was to do anything I asked him to do, anything I was willing to teach him to do, and I asked him to do, and he would do it. And after a couple months, I realized like there's two of me now because he's doing all these things that I was previously trying to do or wishing I could do, but I couldn't because there wasn't enough time in the day. And now there's me, and I'm not just focusing on programming. Now I have the ability to do something else. And that first hire was really what kind of changed the direction of my business and my life.
Brilliant. And that was still back in 2003?
So that was 2005 when I made my first hire.
Right. Yeah. And, I hear a lot about that, about India. You mentioned it. I've certainly had my experience with that. Has it changed much since 2005?
So I don't know because I haven't done it, but I have seen that the world's outsourcing has shifted from India to the Philippines. I mean, I've watched that shift happen. So I think people just thought, oh, there's 1.3 billion people in India and they teach English. And so we've got to be able to find some good people there. And, the Philippines isn't nearly as big, but there's 100 million people in the Philippines. So it's still really big, and English is government mandated as a primary language there. So like I've only been there once. I've only been to the Philippines once.
Really?
It was in 2010. And I was in a hotel lobby and I was watching a hotel clerk and a guest argue, both Filipino, arguing in English. And that was super eye-opening to me, like, oh my gosh, now I understand why we never have communication problems, why they get it, why we can teach them. The whole thing, it's so, so different than what most people experience in India.
Yeah, well, look, my experience was 2011, I left Coca-Cola, and similar story, like overwhelmed. I always had an executive assistant and lots of people at Coke. So, all of a sudden I'm doing it all myself. And a business coach of mine said, same thing. Have you thought of the Philippines? And I go deep, right? So within a month, I actually flew to the Philippines. I interviewed different outsourcing companies. So I didn't want to go direct the first time round. And, lo and behold, then I ended up setting up a company, etc. But it was a dream, and especially back then when the Filipino peso was, quite comparable or quite low, I suppose, in currency. It was brilliant. And I had the same experience as you. I'm like, everywhere I go, it's just a conversation, and predominantly with lovely people that really want to help you. So it completely transformed my life, and probably the same as you have across the board. And how did it go from, that you doubling yourself to now, having over 1 million profiles on the platform?
So I was part of a mastermind group at the time. We had weekly phone calls, which was really awesome at the time. And after I had done this for about a year, I'd had these people. So I had this guy working for me. He was amazing. In fact, he still works for me today. I hired him in 2005. He still works for me today. He's amazing. When I first hired him, he knew nothing. And today he's amazing. Then I hired a programmer, and I got programming off of my plate. And then people started asking, like, how are you doing this? So this mastermind group, I found myself talking every single week. People were asking, how are you doing this? How is this working so well? But what about this? How are you hiring? The whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And finally, I was like, I can't just keep telling this same thing over and over again. So I recorded myself talking about this whole process for 45 minutes. I recorded an audio, and I made it available on my blog, and it kind of blew up. People started listening to it and contacting me, and then all these guys on this mastermind group had audiences, and they wanted me to teach their audiences. So I started teaching it, and after about a year of that, it was like, well, finding people in the Philippines kind of sucks. It was hard. Like, you flew there, and most people don't want to fly there. And at the time, this is 2006. This is 2007. It wasn't great to find people. And so I thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can create a better way, because I was recruiting someone, and I was super frustrated with the agency style of finding someone, where they find someone for you and they give you that person, they mark up their salary and lease them back to you. The good thing about it is at least that person's full-time for only you, which was a big deal for me. But the rest of the stuff that goes on with the agency model just didn't work for me. And so I decided I'm going to try and put together this job board thingy that maybe I'll get a couple hundred profiles in it, and I could recruit someone myself. And I got a couple hundred profiles in it in the first month, and had no idea how quickly the Filipino people would respond to this. Like, it just blew up. And this was 2000. We launched it in 2009. Last month, 60,000 Filipinos signed up. So it's now huge. So that's kind of the process of why I started onlinejobs.ph and kind of where it went.
Brilliant. And look, we'll slide now into the build section. So when someone says to you, hey, John, what do you do? How do you best describe that?
I run a job board for the Philippines. It's kind of like Indeed.com, where you have employers from around the world coming to hire virtual workers from the Philippines. Those virtual workers work from home, and you recruit them on your own. We don't mark up their salaries. You pay them however you want to pay them, and they work for you, directly for you. So you're not like hiring a company that's farming out the work to a bunch of people. You're working directly with that person.
Excellent. And, what are the, having that many jobs on the board, this may be a hard question to answer, but, this type of company size, what was it in 2009 and what has it progressed to now? Is it still sort of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, or has it also gone a lot broader than that?
So you mean our customers?
Yeah, your customers.
Yeah, so we have customers of every single type. So we have tons of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. We have attorneys, we have real estate agents, we have insurance agents, we have doctors, we have Google and Uber and Canva as customers, and like everything in between all of that. So we've had hundreds of thousands of employers use the site, and like we don't even know most of them. that are using the site because we never see it.
Yeah.
It's just you post a job and Filipinos apply and we're not involved.
Yeah, what a beautiful model. And, for you, I suppose a lot of people might have seen the same gap. Why do you think you doubled down and it was so successful versus others that may have tried it?
So there's been two things that we did well that others haven't done well. One of those is that we have always stuck with what we do. Everybody else wants to, and I get approached with this idea once a week or once a month saying, hey, why don't we set up an office in the Philippines and we'll, since you have all these Filipinos access to them, let's sell them to people. And we'll mark up their salaries and we can make so much money. And I've always said no, and I just don't like it. Yeah. The other, and frankly, the employers don't like it either. Like they like the idea of having someone else find them a worker, but then very quickly they're like, oh, I don't want to pay $1,500 a month when they're paying the worker $500 a month, which is typically the markup. The second thing that we've always done that really made a difference was we always charged employers to use the site. And lots of other people have come in and tried to not charge and tried to make it free, and it just creates a scammer breeding ground, which is kind of like Craigslist. Like this is why I've never heard of someone successfully finding a worker on Craigslist, because it just creates this breeding ground of scams where nobody trusts anybody. There's so much scamming going on that people just don't really want to use it. So we charge because it prevents scam employers, and then it allows us to have the resources to remove scammy workers, and it creates a good situation.
Yeah, brilliant. And the state of outsourcing. Before we went live, you spoke about with COVID that there's a huge demand. Just talk about what is that demand like at the moment.
So in March, we saw a 3% decline, and in April, we saw a 3% decline. And usually those are pretty good months for us. They're growth months. And in May, we saw 25% growth. And June was similar again. So, I think everybody freaked out in March and April with COVID, and then woke up and recognized like, hey, I still got to run a business. And they started hiring again. And so, the number of Filipinos signing up on the site doubled because they're all at home. And so the state of outsourcing right now is just booming, where people are realizing, oh my gosh, I can hire a loyal, honest, hardworking, competent person in the Philippines at an eighth the cost of someone in the US. They're going to stick around with me forever. As long as you treat them well, they can be very talented. I can get the same work done. People are especially realizing this now as they themselves are working from home and everything still seems to be running fine. Who knew that could work? And so virtual work works. Like it's really good. And so people are realizing more and more, oh yeah, this is the way we should be moving the company.
Yeah, I remember when I left in 2011, 2012, most of my friends were still in corporate and they just couldn't get my work style. They're like, he's retired, he's retired. Yeah. He's always in his tracksuit pants at home. He's playing golf in the middle of the day. Like he's full on retired. But, for me, the reason that in 2016, I had some health challenges and, I wrote a book. I actually went through and kept my business running whilst I had a transplant. And it was only due to my team in the Philippines. Right, I can't imagine doing it. So, you must talk to a lot of business owners, and is there any rationale not to go and outsource? I can't find one, but have you ever seen a situation where someone shouldn't go and tap into this great job market?
No, yes. Okay, so So I told you guys in the beginning, I'm not very good at like hiding my feelings about things, right?
Yes.
The most common outsourcing advice that people give is do what you're good at and outsource the rest of it. And I think that is the worst advice ever. So the situation, you're asking, what's the situation where someone shouldn't do this, right? If you're really good at making sales, like sales is your thing. That's what you're good at pushing. You're good at driving this in your business. Okay, do what you're good at, right? And try and outsource some other stuff. Gary Vaynerchuk made a post recently that said, people try and outsource what they're not good at, and or they try and outsource things, and they should stick with what they're good at. Example: you're good at sales, you outsource sales, and like, no, dude, that's not that. 95% of people are not good at sales, right? So if that's what you're good at, then don't outsource it. Otherwise, people should be outsourcing just about everything and figuring out how to make sales, because that's what drives a business. And the more you can learn about making sales, the more success you'll have, and the more you can get rid of other things off of your plate, like driving traffic or marketing pieces or content creation or programming or design, or all of those things can be done by other people, and then you drive the sales process. So people should be outsourcing just about everything that can be done online or on a phone or on a computer.
Yeah, okay. And I always, like the saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, I see so many people, and definitely for solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, a lot of the time they don't value their time for money. And, everyone's talked about it, but it is so true. I ask people, what are you pulling in drawings? And, they're faced, they'll say, yes, I'm doing this at a revenue top line. And then I look at the bottom line, what they're pulling out in cash to fund their lifestyle. And it's, just not commercially viable. Mm. And it's because, it's just quicker for me to do it. Or, by the time I tell someone, I've already done it.
And that's true.
Yes.
That's true. But you're running a business that hopefully doesn't die in the next year, right? So you got to do that thing over and over and over again. And so I'll give you the example that, like, this is the number one thing that I find that people are like, oh, but I'm so good at social media marketing. Well, yeah, because who's not good at wasting time on Facebook, right? Get someone else to do that crap and get it out of your life. Because, you might be doing marketing on Facebook, but there's so much wasted time in it that, get someone else to do it and waste their time.
So, you say on your LinkedIn profile that you work 17 hours a week. So what are the key things that only you do in that 17 hours a week?
So this is something that I figured out over the years. Was I had to make a transition from being a worker in my business to being the CEO. And I think most entrepreneurs either have to make this transition at some point, or they really just end up struggling the whole time. So the only thing that I do is I think and I give instructions. So like we're designing, we're redoing our messaging platform on online jobs. And I thought through it like, hey, here's how this should work and here's why. It should be mobile. It should have these features. Let's come up with you guys come up with a database design for this. You come up with a front end design. So they do that and they send it back, and I'm like, okay, well, some of these things don't work, and let's modify how we do this in the beginning, right? So all I'm doing is thinking and providing direction to people, and then I let them do their work. So I use a project management system, and I look and see what people did, and I give them feedback, or I give them instructions, and I answer some email and kind of give my team direction on things that we're doing. And I don't ever write code, even though I'm a programmer. I haven't written code in probably 7 years, 8 years, 9 years. I don't touch WordPress. I don't touch emails, like company emails. I don't touch customer support. All I do is think. And obviously it took me a long time to get to that point, but that's the goal, is to get to that point where you're the CEO and you just think and other people do the executing.
Yeah. And what project management system do you use?
We use Basecamp, which I love. I love Basecamp.
Yeah, look, it's, we're an Asana shop. We're a bit smaller, but we used to sell tech to service-based businesses, and Basecamp was, always one of our favourites. And for you, you said yes to you've got a VA, but who's the team that supports you? Tell us a little bit about that.
You mean like who do I have on my team?
Yeah. Like how big's the team? How much of it is in-house versus out?
Okay, so in terms of like advice for people, what I'm about to tell you is not what you should do. When I got started, I started with one person, and that's for most people. You should start with one person and make sure this works for you. Today, I have 26 people on my team. For everything from like I have multiple programmers, designers, front end people, HTML, CSS. I have content writers, social media people, customer service people. I have an HR person. I have video, audio editor. I have like admin people that just do whatever I ask them to do, or people that run like data security. System admin. So like everything that would be needed to run an internet-based business, I have in the Philippines. I have a copywriter.
Yeah, and do you have any people in the US, or are they all based out of the Philippines?
So I have a business partner in the US, and I have a girl in the US who writes really well in my voice. So like the people in the Philippines will often write something, and then she will modify it to be in my voice. So, and that's it. That's our team.
Yeah, brilliant. And, for you, the state of the Philippines, like you said, they've got a huge education base. They've got all of the, English is, I think they're the third largest English speaking country in the world. Where do you see this heading? So project, 10 years out, is the Philippines still going to be, the main place for outsourcing in the world, or is there other regions that are going to kick up?
So I'm not very good at seeing the future. Like I told you, I'm not very good at disguising my feelings. I'm not very good at seeing the future, but over the last 10 years, like I said, I've watched almost all outsourcing transition to the Philippines, and I don't see another country's culture competing with what they're offering in the Philippines right now. So like the government is backing this, they're actively encouraging it. We've been approached by different government agencies saying, hey, let's start training people together. And I just don't see that elsewhere.
Yeah, excellent. And if you're really keen to kick your journey off or add to it, you can just go to onlinejobs.ph and you can find out more. Before we go into the live section, I'd like to show you how to get 3 to 5 new clients a month on LinkedIn by spending 30 minutes a day, even if you don't know where to start and have a limited marketing funds. Go to blgclick.com and watch our pre-recorded free masterclass. You'll learn 3 key things: the secret formula to 10x your views. The second is 7 killer elements to get 50 likes and 20 comments on every post. And the third is the scripts to get 80% response rates to your LinkedIn messages. Just go to blgclick.com and watch my recorded free masterclass there. And then a lot of the tasks that can be done, you could check out John's site at Online Jobs PH to get a VA to do a lot of it, as he recommended. So the next is the live section. And like I said, you work 17 hours a week, but I'd love to know, what are some of the daily habits that help you be successful?
I am very standard with my sleep schedule. I try and sleep 11 to 7, so I get 8 hours of sleep every night. I exercise every day. I read scriptures every day. I spend a lot of time with my wife and my kids. And I feel like those are things that, like, I think so often we ignore the spiritual side of our lives. We're super concerned with our physical and our mental and our emotional, and we're spiritual beings. And I take care of that part of my life, and I think it's important.
Excellent. And you talked about Kimberly, and we spoke about her at the start, but she's listening right now. What would you like to say to her about the support she's given you?
She knows that there's no way I could have had this journey without her. She has changed me so much, which has been so dang good for me. Mellowed me out, made me a nicer, kinder person. She's probably kept me out of jail. She's just so good.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Kimberly, and a shout out to your brother-in-law as well. You'll have to send him this as well. So the next is the give section. And, what's a community or a charity that you're passionate about and why?
So I have two things that I work with. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I feel like they do such a good job of supporting people in times of need. And so I do a lot of donating and working with them. There's also a local charity called Tabitha's Way it's a food pantry, and they give food free to people, and I work with them on kind of some of their toughest cases of people who are homeless or struggling or whatever, and I try and help those people get on their feet again.
Yeah, and have you seen a spike in demand for Tabitha's Way given the current environment in the US?
Well, there's a lot of people. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. The numbers, I think yesterday, 74,000 cases diagnosed in a day. We're in full lockdown here in Melbourne, Australia, and we're getting 200 cases a day at the moment. It's just hopefully by the time this goes live, we're in a better state and continues that way. And look, I've got a charity that I support, so all my book proceeds go to that, and it is called The Purple House. So you can find out more at thepurplehouse.org.au. And the next section and the last section, John, is the action section. So I'll ask you some questions and get some rapid fire responses. So the first one is, what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
So when I use when I'm at my computer, the only thing I do is work. I do not look at Facebook. I do not watch YouTube videos. I don't do anything, and that right there cuts my work week down a lot. So that's super important. 2, and especially working with a virtual team, I use Snagit, which is screen capture, screen software recording by the makers of Camtasia. It just figuring out how to use a screen capture tool will change your effectiveness. It makes communication so much easier, faster than typing long emails. So that's a really big deal. And then I mentioned Basecamp. Basecamp just keeps me organized.
Yeah, brilliant. And you've talked about Basecamp and Snagit, but what's some other technology that you couldn't run your business without?
There's not much else that I couldn't run. That's what I mean, we have servers and stuff, but I mean, and I know most of the technology behind there only because I'm a programmer, but most people don't want to or need to know that stuff.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, we'll keep it at Basecamp. And what's the best source of new ideas for you? You say that your key job is to think. What is your inspiration of new ideas?
Okay, so here's one of the best things I ever did for my website was after someone buys, they get asked a question on the thank you page that says, what was something that almost prevented you from signing up? That question that comes straight to me has been the best source of feedback on the website and ideas of things that we could do. So
brilliant. Brilliant. And when did you implement that?
It's been probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
And
excellent.
We have fixed so much and made so much better because of it.
Brilliant. And the last question's the big question, and I always leave it to the end for that reason, but what impact do you want to leave on the world?
So my goal with Online Jobs PH is to provide a lot of jobs to the Philippines. I don't have a number because we don't track it because people hire on their own. But in the end, I guess when I die, I want people to say that I was charitable and kind. I guess those are the two things. And I'm pretty reasonable about being charitable. I'm not super great at being kind. So that's something I have to work on.
That's right. Seems like it's a journey, not a destination, the last one. So
Right.
so keep at it. And I know that you've got a free book that you've kindly given all of people listening right now. So you can get that at Outsourcing Lever. So outsourcing, lever.com. But John, it's been fantastic having you on. Like, I've used your platform a lot. I know that even the agencies that I used to work with use your platform. You were the key source of finding jobs. And from something that started as a personal pain point back in 2003, it's amazing how far it's gone. And just, I know the way that you change lives in the Philippines. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people, especially Australians, say, oh, you should be only doing, providing Australian jobs. And when I look at, some of the people that I know that they've supported their whole family through working for an entrepreneur across the other side of the world, and they've been able to be at home and all the benefits of that. I think, that's a huge thing. And I know you probably do that more than anybody in the Philippines. So well done for what you've achieved. And also I know you've got a lot to go. So John, brilliant having you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. This has been awesome.
All right, great. Thanks. Have a great night. Bye. That was such an amazing story by John. His work philosophy is perfectly aligned to our brand values, which is Build, Live, Give. You can get the show notes at buildlivegive.com. What is your biggest takeaway from John? Please share on your social mentioning John and onlinejobs.ph. If you believe someone you know would benefit from the show, please share it. You can learn the 3 steps to find and convert your ideal clients on LinkedIn in a pre-recorded masterclass. Just go to blgclick.com. Please take action to build your business and lifestyle, and stay well.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us.